How's that? Better? Can I hear from anybody or? Good evening, everybody. I hope you can all see me and hear me. Thanks for joining us tonight. We're here to introduce the team, the new team that's going to be taking over for me, and then give you also a little bit of background on how my thinking developed. Surprise, right? When you heard I was going to retire. It all happened about a year ago. To bore you with some details, I was driving to Florida with the entire tribe, 10 of us in the van, and I drive all night long. And as we were driving into Florida, Kristen woke up and I told her, when I tell you what I've been thinking, you might not give me 8 uninterrupted hours to think and reflect. She says, why? What are you thinking? I said, I'm thinking I can retire. Kristen immediately responded, when? And so she was on board from the get-go. And I told her, I can make it happen. She goes, well, what made you think about this? I said, well, I got plenty to keep me busy at home, right? Financially, we reached the point where, I could probably make that happen, but I had responsibility to my clients, to all of you. I've been making promises for a long time that we're going to get you to where you want to be in your own degree of financial independence. And so I said to her, watching Michael Napier, the lead planner on our team, over the last 10 years, he's been with our firm for over 10 years, in the business for over 20 years. We brought him in to join our team. He had his own financial planning firm, and we brought him in to develop our own financial planning department, which he did, and so worked with my clients on and off through the years. I was able to see how he worked, and then after about 5 years, he had the department institutionalized, so he hired his own replacement and started focusing on his own business, growing his own team. And again, I was able to watch him. We shared, side-by-side offices. And I said to Kristen, I said, you know what? I could do this, and I could pass my clients on to Michael and his team and feel with every confidence that they're going to be taken care of and get to the point where, that we've been promising to my clients that they'd get to. So we did it. And over the last year, we were making that happen. And I'm pleased to introduce tonight, some of you have already spoken with Michael, and David Laurie is his right-hand man. And we're gonna introduce the team today and field some questions, etc. So no more to do. I'm going to introduce Michael Napier, to introduce yourself and take it from here.
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. So I guess the one thing I can promise is I've got a 15-year-old and a soon-to-be 17-year-old. So I think our Christmas cards each year might be a little less entertaining than what Geoff sends out. So, but it's my pleasure, and it's the pleasure of the team to be in the situation, to get to know you and build your trust and to be in a relationship. So we're excited about moving forward with that. Just wanted to introduce a few people before we get going, which is on your slide now. So it's Chris Meehan's on the phone, and Chris is going to start off with this presentation. He's going to talk for about 10 minutes or so on Medicare. And so Chris leads our Medicare department, our individual health department at HORAN. He's got quite a team behind him, and very knowledgeable on the subject. And so he's at access, or you have access to Chris and his team for all of those questions. Then you've got, as myself, I've been doing this for about 20 years now. Been at HORAN for 11 years, and I think many of the folks on this call I've talked to on the phone. Some of you I haven't, but my background and maybe more or less my expertise, I spent a lot of time on financial planning. So areas in like tax, for example, or you're getting ready to retire. What does retirement look like? How much can I spend per month on retirement? What do I need to withhold? When do I take Social Security? Do I have my estate planning and correct? Those types of questions. So I spend a lot of time on that. My background is investments as well. David Laurie is also here, and he's going to speak a bit. So Chris will go first, then I'll pop in and talk a little bit about Social Security for 10 minutes or so, a couple of tidbits on that. And then David will wrap it up. David Laurie, he'll wrap it up and talk a little bit about the investments and our thoughts on what's going on in this environment and asset allocation. So David's been in the business almost 30 years, and so he's been at HORAN about 12 years, had 16 years at Fidelity. David's got quite a career as well. So I'm going to pass it on, and Chris Meehan is up, and he'll spend about 10 or 15 minutes on the Medicare program.
Thanks, Mike and Geoff. Obviously working from home, what I did in honor of you, Geoff, is I shaved my head and I kept my beard. So that's for you tonight. Hello, everybody. My name is Chris. Like I said, the individual department. I've worked with Geoff. Today is my 13th anniversary at HORAN today, 13th year. And so Geoff and I have sat next to each other. We've done a lot of work together. And I wish you all the well in your retirement. But I've helped a lot of his clients, my team. This is good synergy between these two teams because you're thinking of some of the same things at the same time with regards to retirement on the wealth side and then retirement on the health side. So we're just going to do a brief snapshot just to introduce ourselves and then give you a couple quick things about Medicare, and we will always be available for you in the future. Mike, next slide.
I'm coming.
Yep. So, I don't know everybody on the call where you're at in your Medicare journey, but just a brief history lesson. We got 2 to 3 slides here. Birth of Medicare. A lot of people don't know when you need Medicare, when you get it, who's available for it. So, it's for 3 groups of individuals. Most people know that you're eligible for Medicare at 65. We do a lot of Medicare and Social Security sessions with the wealth team, understanding those 2 different dichotomies. But when you're age 65, that is when you are aging into the system. The second group of individuals that are under age 65 that are eligible have certain disabilities. So if you have Social Security disability for 24 months, the 25th month, you're eligible for Medicare. So we help about 4,500 folks with their Medicare plans, and we have, unfortunately, a lot of them in their 40s and 50s that are doing Medicare because they're on Social Security disability at least 2 years. Individuals of all ages diagnosed with end-stage renal disease, that's a fancy term for permanent kidney failure, and ALS, which is Lou Gehrig's disease. This group of folks don't come across our desk too much, but they obviously are out there. You don't have to wait to age 65. You don't have to wait 2 years. These folks, for example, with end-stage renal disease, the 4th month of treatment of dialysis, Medicare kicks in automatically at that point. So we usually see the folks in this age go 1, 2, 3 in order. Most people age 65. And again, this could go down a whole 2-hour seminar. We're just kind of giving you a briefing of this. Medicare does have 4 parts, Part A, B, C, and D. There's no E, F, and G yet, but there is a new election coming, so you never know. We will go in detail with you at your time, whether you have a plan now and you need to review it, or if you are going to be coming into the Medicare system. Our team of 5, we have 5 folks on our team, would help you understand the ins and outs of these parts. How much do they cost? What does it mean for you? And most importantly, what's best for your situation, for your family, you and your spouse, or you yourself, about Medicare and what these things mean. Next slide, Mike. So want to know, this is a little confusing for some folks that have already been on Medicare. Medicare was put in a law July 30th of 1965. So that long time ago as of today. But they finally switched the old Medicare cards at the end of last year. On the one on the left, the old card used to have your Social Security number as your claim number. And a lot of folks didn't like that with all the identity theft and stuff in this time period. So anybody moving forward will get the card on the right, which is a new card, and you could see the Medicare number, some unique ID number, has nothing to do with your Social Security or your work record on that part. So I wanted to just bring that up quickly. And Mike, next slide, final slide. You could hit it one more time. So if you, Mike and David and Jeff have seen this probably a lot. We do one-on-one sessions just like the wealth team does. And Jeff, we usually put this piece down on the table when we are doing it in person or if we're doing it virtually. And we help you understand the roadmap of what's the things you need to do first, second, or third in your Medicare journey to make it a nice, smooth process. I know Mike's team will talk about Social Security when you sign up for it, about 90 days in advance. You're going to want to do the same thing with Medicare. Anytime you're going to retire from your group health plan or you're turning 65, you want to start looking at this about 90 to 100 days in advance of when you need this. The government does work like a tortoise sometimes, so it does take them a little time to do some of the things. And some of the things you need to do, you have to do the Medicare piece first through the government, which is original Medicare that you see Part A and B. That's kind of the prerequisite to do anything below the blue arrows, which are purchasing products, supplements, and advantage plans through private insurance companies like Anthem, Humana, etc. So if you know that you're going to do this about 90 to 100 days in advance, it's going to be a lot smoother of a transition. You'll get your cards before you need them. We'll really identify and help you understand and educate you on what plan is best for you by asking a variety of questions of what your needs and what you're trying to accomplish as you move forward into your retirement stage. And we're going to obviously worry about the healthcare because, if you don't make the right decisions, all the wealth you accumulated, it's noted that a lot of times what takes that wealth are medical costs. And we want to try to make sure that doesn't happen and try to make sure that have you on the right plan. So again, I just wanted to show you the roadmap. At some point we would take 45 minutes and only look at this slide, but not going to do that this evening. Just want to help you understand what our services are. We're partners with Mike and Jeff and David. There is no fee for our services. When we help people with Medicare and we're licensed, we're not allowed to charge any fees. We get commissions from the insurance company. So for you, the client, it's a win-win because you're getting to see all the plethora of plans out there and you have an advisor that's working for you, not with nothing coming out of your pocket. So again, we appreciate Jeff, 13 years being a client, colleague of yours. It's been a great time, and I know we won't get rid of you, but we'll be able to talk to you anytime. But appreciate everybody on the call. Thanks, Michael, for letting us have the 10 minutes.
Oh, for sure. And so, thank you, Chris. And again, so Chris, when you're getting ready to retire, and we'll be talking to most of the folks on this call when folks are getting to retire, but you typically go meet with Chris and his team typically 3 months in advance. That's when you can get the ball rolling. And at that point, he'll talk to you. Him and his team will talk to you about what's best for me. Advantage, supplement. How does it all work? What insurance company should I go with for the supplement and advantage? Those types of things. They do a phenomenal job. So if you're wanting to meet with him sometime soon, feel free to reach out to myself or Purette. Purette can also link everyone over to Chris as well. So thanks again, Chris.
Thank you.
Okay. So I'll move the slide up. We're not the most technology proficient type folks here, so I appreciate your patience tonight. So again, what we're trying to do with this presentation tonight is just kind of give you some tidbits on different financial planning topics. But the thought of it is, after this call tonight, we haven't spoke before. We would like to at least schedule something that myself and David, or myself and Jeff or whatnot, we get on the phone and kind of dig a little deeper through these areas. So I'm going to spend just a little bit of time on Social Security. And so David, Lori, and I are both we both have designations in Social Security, and we both teach Social Security. So we know the subject really well. About 6-7 years ago, they made a bunch of reforms in Social Security. There used to be 11 different strategies. I used to do a Social Security seminar back then. We talked about the 11 strategies of Social Security. Now there's like 2. They've gotten rid of most of the strategy, and now the system is pretty much straightforward on what you can and cannot do on the most part. But the thought is just to kind of touch on some of it. Some of the questions we get, I probably get just about every day when we're talking to someone about Social Security, when the heck to take it, and I'll give you our 2 cents on that in a second. But the thought is, some folks want to take Social Security right away because is the system going to go broke or not? These are the numbers that the Social Security Administration comes out with once a year. They come out with it typically in December on the results of the trust fund. So there's a trust fund with money in it to be distributed to all the Social Security beneficiaries. And so at the end of last year, the trust fund was almost $3 trillion, $2.8 trillion. Total income, which is mostly through payroll taxes, was roughly $1 trillion, and they distributed roughly $1 trillion. So we were pretty much flat last year in the Social Security Trust Fund. But the thought is, without any reform, the Social Security Trust Fund will go broke roughly in 2035. And if it goes broke, Social Security assumes that at that time you're going to have roughly a 21% haircut if nothing's done. So 79% of your benefits would be paid. This is what they're saying. There is a bill in Congress that's supposed to be bipartisan, yet I'm not sure if anything's going to happen this year, but there's a bill that's out there that essentially secures the system to 2100, and it's actually called the bill's actually called Social Security 2100 Act. So you're free to Google that and get more information. But basically, what they're doing is raising payroll taxes by roughly 2% over the next 25 years. And most of this is for your higher income earners, and that way it secures it until the end of this century. So take a look at that. Apparently, it is a bipartisan bill, and it's got a lot of mum. But with COVID, I'm not sure that's going to happen anytime soon. But it's out there to be passed eventually. When should I apply for this stuff? The thought is full retirement age, and most of you probably know what this is. So full retirement age is the age that you can receive Social Security at the full amount. And so if you look on the slide, you match up your year of birth, and it gives you your full retirement age. So the year that you can receive Social Security, the full amount of Social Security. So for 1960 and above, later 67, and anyone before 1960, you can see that it goes down from there. If you take Social Security before full retirement age, so I want to take it at 62, I'm essentially getting a 7% discount for each year I take it before your full retirement age. So if I took it at age 62, I'd receive roughly 75% of what I would have gotten at age 66 or 67. So you take a slight discount if you take it a little early. If you take it later, and by the way, I think it's like 72% of us take it between age 62 and 63. So most of us take it a little early. If you delay, let's say to age 70, you're getting an 8% increase for every year you delay after full retirement age. So if I delayed it, I'm getting roughly 32% more on Social Security. When should I apply for benefits? And I'll give you my 2 cents on this. And I think most of us in this room tonight agree with this. I always say that you ask 100 planners when they should take Social Security, you probably get 100 different answers. Everyone has their own opinion when we should start taking. But some factors to consider, and some of this is kind of common sense, but factors to consider: health status, life expectancy, need for income. So the thought is, if your health isn't very good, or you have very low life expectancy in your bloodline, or you need the money to retire, you take Social Security right away, on the most part. But the big question is taking it early, and if you decide to continue to work. So if I'm 62 or 63, and I'm still working, and I want to take Social Security, you've got to be real careful with earnings tests. So if you're before full retirement age, if you're earning income, you could have your Social Security discounted if you take it. So if you're age 62 or 63, you're making $50,000 a year, you probably don't want to take Social Security because your benefit's going to be reduced to nothing. And so there's an earnings test between age 62 and your full retirement age. Earnings test between 62 and your full retirement age. and the earnings test is roughly $18,240 in the middle of the screen. So if you make more than that, for every $2 you make over that limit, they take $1 away. And so I typically tell clients, I had a conversation yesterday with a client who's just turned 62. She wants to take Social Security, and she's kind of a workhorse type. And so I said to her, I'd be shocked if you didn't go back to work doing some kind of consulting or some kind of earned income. She said, there's a possibility. I said, well, you probably need to wait on Social Security until the day that you know you're not going to be working anymore, or full retirement. So full retirement, no more earnings test. You can make as much as you want. But before full retirement, there's an earnings test, and we're happy to kind of talk through that when we meet with you. My 2 cents on this, I typically don't have a problem with people taking it around full retirement age. That's pretty much the rule of thumb on the most part, and it all depends. It all depends, and I hate giving you that answer. It all depends, but it all depends on your situation, on your lifestyle, your cash flow, your assets. How much assets you have saved. But many times, I don't have a problem with people taking it at 66 or 67, full retirement age, because the thought is at 66, you're getting a check every month, right? If you wait till age 70, you've lost 4 years of checks. And so that's a large amount of money. And so the break even on that's roughly 81 or 82. So my thought is take the money and enjoy it earlier on. And most folks spend more the younger they are when they first retire versus later on. But a lot of other factors, what's going on in the market, those types of things we need to look at as well. But all in all, I typically don't have a problem personally with people taking it before age 70, so taking it a little early. But again, it all depends, and we're happy to talk with you through all that. How do I apply for Social Security? I just want to give you a quick tidbit on this because I don't want to spend too much time on it. But the thought is there's 3 ways to apply. Go into your local Social Security office, and most of those offices are closed still with COVID, so that's probably not going to work for you. But scheduling a phone appointment's an easy way. The trick is you got the phone number on the slide, but the trick is you call right when the phone line opens at 7 a.m. So you get up early and you call Social Security. You might be on a 15-minute wait at 7 o'clock. You call at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, you'll be on a 2-hour wait or 3-hour wait. Call early, and when you call the phone number, they're not going to sign you up. They're going to schedule a time for someone to call you back, sign you up, and all in all, people have had good experiences with signing up over the phone. So comfortable with that. The easiest way to do it is to go online and do it. And David and I and our team here, we're happy to help you with that. And so I just did that this morning. I had a phone call with a client, and I just went ahead and enrolled them in Social Security. It takes about 20 minutes to do. So big fan of just doing it online. And typically you'll have someone call you back in 2 or 3 weeks, Social Security, just confirming what you did. So I'm more of a fan of doing that. And just like Chris, when he was talking about Chris Meehan on Medicare, the earliest you can enroll in Social Security is 3 months before you want it. And so the thought is, I say get signed up as soon as you can in case there's any issues. But 3 months before you want it is when you sign up. And there's a 1 month delay. So if you tell them you want to sign up as of November, you're going to get your first check in December. So there's a 1 month delay on signing up. I always just warn people that so when they get their acceptance letter, they know that's the case. It's typically a 1 month delay on this. Finally, on my side of the presentation, I just want to spend a few minutes on this. This is, like, in my opinion, like the quick and dirty way of realizing what retirement income might look like. And so how do I know how much gross before taxes, how much can I live on per month when I want to retire? Say I want to retire next year, what am I looking at? And this is a rule of thumb. And so the quick and dirty way of doing it is essentially you're adding up your monthly Social Security benefits, you're adding up your pension benefits if you have them. If you have annuities, you're adding up your monthly benefit on that. So you add those 3 up. You take all of your retirement assets. So you add up what's in your 401k, what's in your IRA, what might be in your brokerage account. So add up that number, times that by roughly 4 to 5%. So it's called a distribution rate. You take that number, and that's what you can take at annually. So rule of thumb. So if I had $100,000 saved for retirement, I could take out roughly $4,500 a year or $5,000 a year. So call it $600 a month. So I would take that number, add my Social Security, add my pension benefit if you have it, and that's going to give a gross monthly, before taxes, a gross monthly income number. So these are the types of things that we work on here, and we can formalize this plan instead of doing it kind of throwing it together the way I just described. So, and that's kind of the quick way of doing it. And then we would help you at HORAN decide how much to withhold. And so folks who are just getting to retire, remember that we'll help you with the tax benefit or the tax withholdings. I kind of go through, my background is tax. I go through some calculations for you and say, hey, if you're going to receive X amount, you need to withhold X amount. And what most people do when they retire, most people what they do is they'll consolidate their assets. Say it's in an IRA, we would link your IRA to your checking, and each month we would send you amount. And so maybe it's $2,000 a month we would send to your checking plus your Social Security, and that's your retirement income. That's what most of our clients do. So what we're trying to do is kind of recreate your income and what you're doing. So that's kind of my quick tidbit on Social Security and retirement. But again, give us a call and we'll walk through your specific situation and questions behind this and get you all set up. So I'm going to turn this presentation over to my colleague and team member, David Laurie. And David's going to just talk a little bit about the basic of investing and what we're thinking on the investment market.
Thanks, Mike. Let me slide into the hot seat here. So glad you all are able to attend, and look forward to talking with you in the future if we've not already met. So to Mike's point, I'll talk to some of the investments and that's the strategies behind that. Mike's last slide is really a good tee up for the investment area, and it leads to this slide, which is, what are your goals and time horizons? Are you 10 years away from retirement, 15 years away? What's the risk that you need to take? And you determine your risk tolerance. As you get to retirement and your goals change with your investments, if you're trying to get a sustained amount of income out of your portfolio, 4 to 5% through your retirement years, we adjust your allocation based on that, and your risk tolerances change. So with that, so what are some of the typical things we meet or see when we meet with potentially even new prospects? It's one of them is that individuals may be too aggressive. If you're aggressive, if you've got time to tolerate the short-term volatility, if you're in your 40s, 50s, you've got 10 years before retirement, you're going to see more market volatility, but you can tolerate that volatility and come out on the other side, gaining back your income and then growing that. With the markets, obviously there's no guarantees or insurance around those, and there is potential to lose principal. And we'll see in a future slide what happens if you make short-term decisions with your long-term money and go away from your strategy. But I'll tee that up for a future slide. So
sure, I'll mention on that, David. Being too aggressive. I think just recently with our markets in March, in a 2-week period, we were down over 30%. And so now we're talking to clients, and it's how did you feel back then? If it was a situation where you're not sleeping at night or just constantly bringing you anxiety, probably a good time to adjust. Now that the market's it's gone back up, we've had a V-shaped recovery. If you think you kind of went into it a little bit aggressive back in March when we didn't see this market dive, now might be a good time to make some adjustments and bring down your risk a bit. But it wasn't long ago when we had this nasty dive in the market. But fortunately, it's gone straight up. Who knows how long that's going to last? But if we're looking for adjustments, now might be a good time to kind of talk through it.
Yeah, that's a great point. And the other perspective I'll give is, since the recovery out of the housing market, we've had 4 or 5, 10% corrections. We've had a couple of 20% corrections, and certainly we've just seen a 30 to 35% correction. Out of those corrections, we have been able to recover a majority of our money within about 3 to 6 months, so a very short period of time. It wasn't that long ago, the housing bubble, during that downturn, it took 2.5 years to get back to even. And if we dial all the way back to the tech bubble, it took about 4.5 years to get back to even. So that's where we want to make sure we're talking and we're creating an asset allocation that makes sense for your time horizon and your risk tolerance, so that you can stay with the plan during these times of volatility. The next slide, if you're is being too conservative. So we don't see that a lot within the accounts that we have managed, and certainly Geoff has partnered with you for decades and really set you all up for success at having the right allocation. But one of the things that we're trying to tackle on the short end of the curve, and even more so now with short-term money markets, CDs, not even keeping pace with inflation. But inflation over the last 40 years has averaged about 3.1%. We've got lower than that now. But if you're investing too conservatively with the majority of your money that you're needing to grow over time, you're not keeping pace with inflation and you're losing buying power each year. So again, we don't see that too much, but those are somewhat of the types of accounts that we encounter and have to readjust over time.
And so on that note, when I talked about a second ago about taking 4 or 5% out of your portfolio, if your accounts and all CDs and money market or very short-term bonds, you're probably not going to get a 4 or 5% return. So for that 4 or 5% distribution rate to work, we have to have a little risk in there so that over a long period of time, you're earning 5% and possibly you're taking out 5%. So being a little too conservative could really could adversely affect that on the most part.
So as we build portfolios, really what we're taking a look, and what this slide speaks to is diversification. We've all heard that, but we mainly think of diversification in the stocks. So a couple examples just right in the top of the slide. You think large U.S. companies. Well, there's different types of large U.S. companies. So we have the value type of companies. Think Procter & Gamble, Verizon, AT&T. Long-term companies that have built a nice brand over the years and are able to pay back individuals through dividends. So they may be paying 2, 3, 4% in dividends. So there's that income stream along with growth of their company. In contrast, you have true growth companies. So think some of the technology healthcare companies that are out there, Amazon, Google, Netflix. They're still on very much a growth path. They're not paying back in dividends, and they behave different throughout the market cycles. If I look at a 20-year chart and I look at best performing areas of the market, maybe there's a year or two that an area performs, but that rotates even through a growth cycle. So maybe small cap or maybe international value or growth perform. So that's where we're trying to diversify across all asset categories. And stocks, as I mentioned, value growth. Certainly there's large, the brand name companies that by heart, but there's up and coming companies, small, mid cap. They're very much in a growth phase. So having exposure to kind of the future blue chips, if you will, with potential additional returns above large cap growth. And then U.S. international, and if we look at international, developed and emerging markets. So again, most people think of diversification in stocks, so those may be more common terms and areas that we've talked about or with you in the past, but certainly on the bond side as well. So interest rates have lowered, so how do you get yield? Certainly you want to build a portfolio that has a nice concentration in government, the treasuries. There's your security, and people invest in bonds for two reasons. One is a shock absorber to the stock market. So if the stock market goes down, you have an area of your portfolio that's holding up, and then you're trying to get interest. And with short-term interest rates being near zero, where are other areas that you can get interest? So that's when we look to corporates. So there's investment grade corporates, there's high yield corporates. So you're getting into a 2, 3, 3.5% yield, and then listed there is securitized. So think asset backed, think mortgages, and And so you're able to get some yield there. And certainly the U.S. isn't the only place for bonds. So we look at U.S. and then we look at foreign. And the other place that you get diversification through the bonds is on the maturity time spectrum. So shorter term bonds, intermediate term that may be 5 to 7 years, and you have longer term, 20-year bonds. So at different types of market cycles and where the interest rates are, you want to have some diversification through there. So really that's kind of a diversification story, and we've been able to access all of these areas through the American Funds. American Funds has been a great partner to be able to build portfolios to and adjust over time to take advantage of the different areas that you need to be in through kind of a full market cycle and to achieve your long-term goals with that allocation.
Just to add to that, so this slide here talks about all the different types of diversification, all the different types of stocks and bonds and those types of things. And the beauty of the portfolios here, we've got it set up so that you've got a mixture of just about all these different components. It's all about diversification. When the market goes down, call it in March this year, with different products and different investments, if the market's down 30%, your bonds might be up or flat, and that's why we do it that way. Or recently, it's been interesting, like the technology companies, the growth companies they call it, they're up 18% year to date right now. So like your Amazons and your Teslas, those types of companies. And so right now, what a lot of our clients are doing, and what we're doing for some clients, and we're taking some off growth and putting in some more value. Value would be like a Procter & Gamble type company, your steady Eddie dividend type companies, but do a little bit of each and not overly exposed to either one, because dividends work different than non-dividends. So Procter works different than Amazon, and the same on the international side. Most of your portfolios have a nice exposure to international, so we're big fans of international emerging markets and emerging market bonds, and so we want a diversification there. So continue to have the conversation with you on that, and especially with this volatile market, we've had a heck of a ride since the bottom, and really for those who were feeling anxious right now, since the market's really rallying, we're only 5 or 6% from an all-time high. Give us a call. Let us talk to you about your portfolio. If we've had such a good ride, maybe it's time to take a little risk off the table. Being that the COVID's still around, we're not there's not a whole lot of clarity to that yet, on the most part, and we've got a political election coming up. We've got earnings coming out with these companies. A lot of risk out there, and if you're feeling anxious about it, give us a call. Let's set something up and talk through it a bit.
2 more slides. This has been a very popular slide that we've included in a lot of our seminars since March, and it has really helped steady some individuals throughout the downturn. So this chart looks at a $10,000 investment from January 1, 2002 for a 15-year period ending December 31st, 2017. And really it looks to building a strategy, building a game plan, and sticking with your game plan. So in this scenario, if you stayed fully invested, and certainly 2002, the tech crash was still going on. There were 3 years of down years. So 2002 was a down year. If we take a look at the housing bubble and crash, that was 2008, 2009, that bled into 2010. And then we had another down year here or there up to 2017. So if you stayed in the market throughout that whole time frame, if you look at that first line of fully invested to the right, your average annual return is just under 10%. So that's with all of those down years factored in there. If you look at the next line, which is if you just missed 10 days over that entire 15-year period, so if the market was going down and you decided to pull out and miss some of the up days within there, your average annual return was cut almost in half, a 5% annual average return over that 15-year period. And then you can see at the bottom, if you missed the best 30 days, you actually had a negative average annual return. And what I'll comment on, and we saw this in March and April, is a lot of times when you have these big corrections on the downside, you have some of these best day recoveries. We had 8 and 10% really unprecedented down days, and we were on the phone pretty much every day with different clients. And then all of a sudden you saw 1 or 2 days later the recovery. So, you know, on the phone with individuals kind of talking through what it appeared to be no floor in this market, but staying with your game plan and having that allocation that will give you confidence to stick through some of the volatility is really the best strategy over time.
I want to mention something. This is one of my favorite slides, and it tells a good story. And we didn't have too many people really selling out in March, which was a good sign on the most part. We had a lot of phone calls and you know, coaching clients through it a bit. But in 08, I had a story that really ties into this particular slide. I had a client. This client had $1 million with us, and so remember in 08, the market just for 6 or 7 months it just went straight down. In 08, so clients would call me, and I would say, hey, hang in there. And essentially, the market continued to go down. And so the bottom of the market was March 9th of 2009 was the bottom and back in that time period. And during 2008, the market was down 55% at one time in 2008, a rough year. So the bottom of the market was March 9th. I had a client, the same client, calling in all year long. Market continues to go down. 9th was the bottom. He called up and said, get me out, I'm done. And so I literally took his portfolio $1 million against my recommendation and sold out right at the bottom. And so right after March 9th, the market started cranking back up. And so I ran into this fella just a couple of years ago. It's actually like a church festival in Northern Kentucky. I run into this client who was no longer a client because he decided to try investing on his own. But I ran into this client a couple of years ago, and I said to him, did you ever get your money back in the market? And he said, no, it's still in money market. Market's up like 350% since that time period, since 08, which is 12 years ago now. So my point to you is this: it's easy to say to heck with it and get out. It's even tougher to get back in. And so what do you do now? You got out in March and you're out of the market. What do you do now when the market continues to go up? What are some of the strategies around that? And so the thought is having proper diversification and having some assets that do different things at different times in the market is pretty much the solution behind that. And we're happy to kind of talk through that and have a conversation around that particular diversification risk tolerance level.
And just to reiterate Mike's point, is it's tough to get in because from March 9th for the next year and a half, there wasn't good news. The headlines were still it's a fake rally and the markets are going to be cut in half again. So it's tough to buy in when there's continued bad news on the headlines. So having a strategy around that. And we work with a lot of individuals that have been in cash, and we start working with them and create a strategy to understand the long-term focus, understand kind of the goal of the allocation, and then get them into the markets over time. And that over time can be 6 months, a year and a half. So, and this is the last slide, and this is really what we've been talking about. And build a strategy, understand your time horizon, understand your risk, so that you can stay with your long-term strategy. And certainly, strategies change. And as Mike mentioned earlier, we've seen the volatility. Tolerance towards that volatility changes, and while we don't want to make wholesale changes, we can tweak allocation and we can get to a strategy that you're comfortable with. And then certainly timing the market, as you saw on the last slide, could really hurt your long-term goals.
Okay, well, thank you, David, and thanks everyone for joining us tonight. Again, we look forward to meeting with all of you. We look forward to building this trust and building a relationship with everyone. Purette is probably the best person to reach out to as normal. So Purette, Geoff is going to be he'll be here in her office until the end of February, and Purette will continue to be on board and will continue to service the clients and Geoff's book of business. But so thank you very much, and turn it over to Geoff.
I want to just thank you all for being with us tonight and being with me for decades. You've meant the world to me, to my family. It reminds me of a story. My little girl, Adelaide, going off to work, Dad, to make some money? And I said, well, Adelaide, actually, I'm going to work to help people. And I said, and if I help people, I'll make money. And that's kind of the way the economy works. And you know what? So you've all been a blessing to me and my family. I hope I've been there for you and continue to do so. Everything I do is with your best interest in mind. That's why Michael, David, and this whole team is here to help you get to your goals. So thank you very much for tonight and always. And we'll be around and talk to you as you'd like.
Good night.